GearBest have kindly sent me another quad to review. This is the Bayangtoys X16 quadcopter. As soon as I got it and looked at it, I thought CX-20 clone, so I'll be very interested in how good a clone it is, because the CX-20 is awesome. I still really like mine, and have a look around the channel for all the different things I've done with it. The box is very simple, just a few nice photographs and in the black on the box. Good carry handle. The transmitter doesn't look as good as the CX-20, but then again the price is a lot better than a CX-20, so we'll be interested. But it really does look just like a CX-20 to me. All your warnings and everything are on the bottom, and all the features, like I say, are all along here, but I'll go through them more in depth in the review. Okay, so got the cardboard packaging undone. Into the main box area you've got your instruction manual, which I'll go through, and I'm going to go through all these bits in a minute with what you get in the package. But I just want to show you the packaging is very good. It's moulded polystyrene, nothing's moved in transport from China, which is good, and nothing's damaged, nothing's cracked or anything as far as I can see, which is really good. And if I turn it over, it's a well designed box actually, because I've got a lot in here in not too big a box area. You've got your transmitter, your propellers, your camera and everything. But I go through all this, just get it unpacked onto the bench. So this is everything you get in the box, and I'll go through them individually and show you how to assemble and get all that done in a second. But probably one of the most important things obviously is the instruction manual, and this one's actually quite clearly laid out. I like it. It's just in English, so you haven't got 2 or 3 nationalities in there, which I find easier to find things. Nice and clearly marked out, so get to know your transmitter. It shows you where everything is as you go through, you know, how to install things. So it's nice, the headings are quite nice and nice clear, I think, which is what an instruction manual should be. How to unlock your motors, unlock them, go into headless mode, basic flying operations, which probably if you're up at this level you're probably used to flying quads, but they've all got their all different features on the transmitters themselves, so it's always worth a good read. The most important thing, get your battery on charge, because we want to get up in the air as soon as we can. And then all the spare parts and different accessories you can get, and even a sort of an exploded assembly view of the quad itself. So no, it's nicely laid out. I'm impressed with that. First thing you've got to do with any of your quads is get your battery on charge, and then you can start doing the assembly and stuff while it's charging. This comes with a balanced charger. It's a small unit, and then you get a mains adapter, and you'll get the plug for whatever country you're in. Just simply plug it in there into the mains, and then you go into the balanced charger port here. The battery that comes with it is a 2200 milliamp hour 3-cell, so it's quite a nice large lump that gives you loads of power, and will also keep it in the air longer as well, which is good. It's a banana connection on this end, and like I say, it's a balanced one there. If you're getting into quads at this level, I would suggest you start looking at something like a hobby grade charger, and I'll put a link in description of the review I did on that, and also how to look after your LiPo batteries, because you're starting to move up into the bigger size batteries here, and they need to be looked after properly. Okay, and onto the transmitter. The transmitter is a hobby grade size, but it has the feel of a toy grade transmitter, to be honest. It's the plastic used. It's quite economic, I would say, cheap, but with the break point on the price on this quad, with everything you get on it, they've got to save money somewhere, and they've saved a bit of money on the transmitter, which I think is fair enough. The levers aren't metal, they're plastic, and there's just the whole thing just feels plasticky, basically. It's got a lanyard attachment there. Having said that about how it feels, you've got good grips on the back here, and it feels comfortable in the hand, and certainly if you come up from toy grade and this is your first sort of move up to this size quad, you're going to like it. It's going to feel a lot better. You need 6 AA batteries for it. They don't come supplied, so make sure you've got those, otherwise you won't be flying. And the levers, like I say, are quite plasticky. To turn it on and off, we simply slide up the on button. Now it won't bind to the quad until you actually pull the throttle down to 0, and then you might have noticed you get a lot more of the graphics come up here. You know it's bound because we've got throttle bars coming up and down, so that shows it is actually bound. I'll run through the functions. You've got your normal trim buttons here, which do the usual things. This button here does absolutely nothing. It would normally be a flip button, and I wouldn't want to flip this, and this doesn't actually activate it anyway, which is good. This button here changes the rates, so if you hear a double beep, and hopefully you can see there's an H come on here, press it again, you just get a single beep. So I like transmitters that make a loud beep when you actually activate something, and when you're changing rates it's quite nice to know that you've gone to high rates, because you've got the double beep without looking down at this tiny piece of graphics here. So I think that's a good move. The other functions, you've got headless mode here. You simply press that and then it goes into headless mode, and it constantly beeps, so you know that you've changed modes from normal flying into headless mode. It's obviously a mode 2 controller, because the throttle's on this side and your pitch and roll's on this side. This button's redundant, and this button is a return to home button. You press that and you get a really big alarm that it's going to start coming back to home rather rapidly, I would have thought. This one takes individual still images, if you've got the camera attached obviously, and this one starts your video and you get a double beep with that, and stops your video as well. And these 4 buttons here are redundant, they don't even make a noise, so they're just obviously going to be used on a different model. The model they sent me has got a complete camera setup on it, so simply plug that into the quad and slide this into the housing on the bottom. It's a large camera housing, but it's a really tiny lens there, so I've got no misconceptions that it's not going to be high quality. It's got a slight anti-dampening feature on it there, but I really don't think that's going to do much, because it bottoms out as soon as you touch it. So I think there's going to be jello on the actual video, or the wobble, it's called jello, that you get on videos. So we'll be interested, and you can change the angle slightly on it. It's in like gentle click stops. You get a USB to micro SD card reader, so you can put that into your computer to download the footage, and then you also get an included 4GB class 10 micro SD card, which you simply put in and then click it into position, and then mount that to the quad, and we're ready to go. You get a whole bunch of screws which you can use to attach the landing gear, and you get what doesn't look much of a toolkit, but to be honest you could strip the whole quad down with this. You get a small Phillips screwdriver, an Allen key, or hex wrench they're called, and a spanner. Basically the spanner is a prop spanner, so when we tighten or loosen the props we need to do it with either a spanner or the tops on these, the top cones on these are quite good, because you could actually use the Allen key as well to tighten them up. You can literally everything to take the body apart. You can use the small Phillips screwdriver, and then once you've got these covers off you can actually use the Allen key to undo the motors, and then you could change the motors over quite quickly. And finally onto the quad itself, which I think looks really slick. I do like the look of this. The antenna on the top here is just fake, but it sort of goes with the look of it all, I think. And obviously it's nice to, I think the cockpit sort of detail here is rather cool as well. More importantly, the build is very good. It doesn't want to deflect or pitch in or anything like you get on the toy grade ones. It's nice and solid construction. I think the motors look really smart, being in red and having the alternate colours as well. And for the prop cones, I think is superb as well. I think these will be LEDs coming through the top here. Not really that useful, because you're very rarely above a quad looking down to see the orientation, but they're handy if they are. What I'm more interested in is how good these LEDs are, because I'd like to see what direction it's in by the LEDs. They're really handy, and I'm thinking sort of the angles that these bow out at have the bulge on. I think that's really going to show up from any direction, so you'll be able to tell what you're doing. It's very simple on the bottom, and the battery bay is very simple as well. Popping the battery in there obviously to get going, and yeah, just everything's well covered up, well marked. There's no air vents through it, which is unusual, only around the motors. There's nothing actually to cool the PCB down, so we'll be interested to see how that goes. Now the only thing I have to compare this to is my very trusty, very used, very loved CX-20. and as you can see, pretty abused as well. This has got me through loads of flying. I use it as a camera platform, and I've been really pleased with the CX-20. It's more or less double the price of this, so there is a big difference in what you get. You get a better transmitter with this, you've got more control on how you program it and everything, but again, it's double the price, and that's a big consideration when you're out for these things. The weight, I will put the two weights down the bottom, but the CX-20 is considerably heavier, about 100 grams heavier than the X16. So again, your battery should in theory last a bit longer in here because you've got less weight to lift up. And that's it really. Yeah, I mean, they are exactly the same size. The finish off of the actual flight of this is just going to be on stock stuff. Everything's going to be stock camera, stock props and everything. But what I want to do then afterwards is actually do another video where I will start trying different props on it, because that's what I do on the CX-20, and then I shall probably put a gimbal on it, or certainly put a decent camera underneath it, and see what it will lift and how it will handle it. So be interesting to see what the next video reveals on what you can do with it with modding it, as opposed to what comes as stock. This is a little trick I learned with the CX-20. If you go to put the landing gear on or start to work on these quads upside down, basically, as soon as you put it down, the first thing to hit is just going to be that fake antenna, and it will get damaged as quick as anything, and it will snap off. So and it will make the quad not look quite so good. So what I tend to do is this. You can use any kind of box, but I just thought the easiest thing was to actually use the box that it came in. It's going to keep it nice and safe. Pop it down inside, and then you know there's nothing going to touch that fake antenna and break it off, because they do snap off really easy. And then we can go ahead and install the landing gear. To attach and remove the camera couldn't be any simpler. You simply slide it in, it clicks into position, it's well held there. To remove it, simply press down here and pull it back out, and then once it's in position, pop the plug in and you're ready to go. You get two sets of props, and you've probably noticed that if you've got another quad before you get this one, that you actually get two different profiles. Well, the profiles are the same, but they basically rotate in the other way. So no matter how I do this, these are literally work in the opposite way. So this one runs, as you can see, from the front out that way, and this one goes the other way, so they're handed. And that's why on quads like this, where we have the nuts on the top, one nut goes anti-clockwise to undo it, so it's an ordinary threaded nut, so it goes clockwise to do it, and this one, when you turn it clockwise, it will undo it. So the nuts are marked clearly, black on this model and then silver, and they can be any sort of colours, but so long as they're identified as different, that's fine. Props always go this way round on the front and always go this way round on the back, so you know which profile goes on and in what direction. So, and that's key. If you don't do that, it won't fly for a start. And easy to remember, I always think it just points to the centre of the quad. It's just the way I remember it. So this one's basically a normal, a right threaded, so a clockwise thread tightens it up. Make sure you've got the correct prop on, which that is, and these have a slot in them, so they will they'll only pass down past the shoulder if they're on the right way. So that must go down like that. And then the benefits of these nuts rotating in different directions is, as the prop goes round, its tendency would be to tighten the nut, so you shouldn't get the nuts undoing or spinning off. To tighten up, just either use the spanner and keep hold. It's probably better holding the motor actually to tighten it up, or alternatively you can just use the wrench, because these ones actually have a really handy hole in them, and then you can just tighten it up. You don't have to go too mad with it, but just make sure it's nipped up and it rotates freely to make sure that it's okay. And you just repeat that for the other three props. Before you connect the battery, always make sure that your quad's turned off on this switch. Then you simply slide the battery into the battery bay area. It's quite a decent size. You probably get a slightly bigger battery in there, which is always handy later. And then connect up the battery, making sure it's around the right way, obviously. You get the noise, but that's not it initiating. That means that there is power go into the ESCs probably. Make sure that's closed so you don't want anything slipping around in there. You get a beep every so often. That means that there is power running around the quad, but you just haven't turned it on ready to bind. So I suggest if ever you're leaving it, you know, so pre-flight obviously plug it in, get ready to go, but if you're leaving it for any length of time, literally make sure you disconnect the battery, because it's still drawing power. But then turn the quad on and we're ready to bind to the transmitter.